Hello my darlings and welcome. Thank you for joining me as I craft a pendulum and a miniature spirit board. Let's do some magical crafting. This is a craft kit I created so that you can craft along with me and make this project. I'll link to it below the video if you want to get one for yourself. But of course, you can make this project using craft supplies you have at home as well. Here are the supplies I will be using. The kit comes with step-by-step instructions, a 4-inch wooden round, as well as a pendulum board design and tracing paper. It comes with 5 paint colors and a gloss sealant, 2 styles of paintbrushes, and a fine-tipped black marker. It also includes 4 items to assemble a pendulum: an opalite pendant, a silver chain and jump ring, and a cut glass beaded cluster to use as a handle. What you need to provide to complete the project are a pair of scissors to cut out the circle pattern, tape to tape it to the board, and a pencil to trace the design. You will also need a pair of pliers to connect the chain to the pendulum, and you may want to use a hairdryer or heat gun to dry the paint more quickly. I'm starting by using the lightest purple paint to paint the top of the round wood board. I found that it took 2 coats for full coverage. You might want to use a hairdryer or heat gun to dry the paint more quickly at this point. While I was waiting for that paint to dry, I decided to assemble the pendulum. There are 4 parts to the pendulum: the opalite pendant, a small jump ring, the chain, and a faceted glass pendant that will serve as a handle to hold the pendulum by. I attached the crystal pendant to one end of the chain by opening the wire loop, threading the chain onto the wire, and reclosing the loop securely with a plier tool. Then I attached the opalite pendant to the other end of the chain using the small jump ring by opening the jump ring with pliers and placing the pendant loop and the end loop of the chain on the ring before closing it back securely. Check the length of the pendulum for comfort. If you prefer a shorter chain, simply remove the handle, cut the chain to the size you prefer, and reattach the handle. I like a chain around 10 inches long, and I tend to place my elbow on the table and let the pendulum dangle from my fingertips. Once the second layer of light purple paint was dry, it was time to start the spirit board design. I cut out the circular paper pendulum board pattern. Then I also cut the tracing paper into a circle as well. I used the tape to attach the pattern to the wood with the tracing paper in between, and it's important to make sure that the tracing side is facing the wood. I used a pencil to trace the pattern onto the wood. This does not have to be a detailed tracing, just enough to be able to draw the pattern onto the board with a marker afterward. Press hard in order to get a good transfer and visible lines. If you're doing this project with materials you have at home, get creative and come up with your own design and color scheme for your spirit board. And now that I'm thinking about it, even if you do get this kit, you don't have to use the design provided at all. If you want to draw your own unique design onto the board, feel free to do so. My next step is to retrace the design onto the board with the black marker. I I'm making the outlines very simple and not adding any detail at this stage because I'll be painting inside of the lines. I noticed that the tip of the pen will occasionally get locked up by the purple paint. If this happens, just write some squiggles on the paper until it flows correctly again. If you want to switch pens, make sure that you use a waterproof marker or an acrylic paint pen. Do not use a water-based pen because the gloss sealant at the end of the project might smear a non-permanent marker. Of course, feel free to add your own touches to this project. You might want to add more responses beyond yes and no on the spirit board. You may wish to add the words rephrase or maybe or ask later in the empty diagonal spaces. I began painting in the design by using a teal green to paint the leaves. I used the dark purple paint in the triangle and the iris of the eye. I also used the dark purple for the two medium-sized flowers. I used the burgundy paint for the large central flower and the two small flowers. Once all of the paint is completely dry, it's time to add detail with a black permanent marker. Fill in the pupil of the eye and the dark centers of each flower. Add details to the flower petals and leaves. Retrace the eye shape and darken the lashes and add detail to the iris. The final paint color is white. Use a small amount of the white paint on the detail brush to carefully fill in the white areas of the eye and the white gleams in the eye. Then load the brush with a bit more paint and carefully dot the centers of each flower. And finally, reload your brush with more white and add white dots to all of the open areas around the design. You will barely need to touch the board with the brush to create dots. Do not press down too hard. I like to vary the sizes of the dots as I make them to add visual interest. Allow this layer to dry completely before sealing the artwork under a clear gloss. Make any changes or fixes to your design before adding the gloss sealant. The gloss sealant will appear a bit milky white, but will dry clear. Completely and evenly cover the top of the board and allow it to dry completely. After the top is dried, I use the darker purple paint to paint the back and sides of the board. And when that paint dried, I used the remainder of the clear gloss sealant to seal the back and sides as well. There's a link to the craft kit in the description below. Happy crafting!